Thank you everyone for joining us for Micro Talks. I'm going to continue the conversation here around habits that Brad started. It's hard to hear backstage, but I don't think we've got stuff that overlapped, which is good because as of yesterday, we had a bunch that did. So we frantically rewrote our slides and rehearsed new things, and I'm going to talk about a different aspect of habits in this talk, Autopilot, Disengage. In this less than 10-minute version of the talk here, talk about habit formation, how do I evaluate their effectiveness. This is where the autopilot portion kind of comes into the presentation. We'll primarily focus on learning some strategies for creating habits, and I'm going to have very little time on breaking them at the end, but I'll give you some stuff you can take away. And then hopefully we can commit to using what you've learned today, put it to use in your own life. I had originally planned on making fun of a bunch of my habits, but you guys get the abridged version of this since I don't have 40 minutes. I'll have to cut some of that out. You all are very familiar with habits, though. You perform them every day. You do them so frequently that they are automated. This is intentional, as it gives your brain extra energy to focus on other things, right? Which is good, except for when it's ungood. And you know those types of habits and you have them in your own life. And that's what got me interested in this topic in the first place. And so as Brad mentioned in his talk there, he also referenced this book, Atomic Habits, by James Clear. That's when we realized our stuff was kind of overlapping and we split our material a bit. I would highly recommend checking out this book or the audio book. It's a good listen, it's a good read, there's a lot of good stuff in it. But let's dig into more of the science behind things, how habits are formed. Remember, the abridged version here. So habits are formed in a bit of a feedback loop where there's different stages. It begins with a cue that you notice in the environment, whether you do it consciously or unconsciously, your brain picks up on these things. That cue is a trigger that tells your brain about some kind of impending reward that you want, which then leads to a craving, which is the motivation that you feel leading you to want that reward. If it is a big enough motivation for you, that can lead to you actually taking action in the form of a response to ultimately get you to the reward. If the reward is satisfying enough and you get a dopamine spike, you're likely to want to create that again. So you do this in a loop until those habits are performed enough to get to the point where it's automated. So taking that in mind and thinking about what we can do to change behaviors, right now primarily focused on creating new habits, we can take each of those stages, the cue, the craving, response, reward, and we can focus on some laws for each of those to better give us the opportunity to make this habit form more successfully. And so for stage one, for the cue, what we want to do is we want to make it obvious. And this is where the awareness, the autopilot of this abstract comes in. And that if you're trying to change something, just like we do with metrics, or you're trying to measure something, you want to change something, you need to be aware of these things in order to be able to change them. One of the ways that we can become aware of our habits is to quite literally just start creating a list of these things. It sounds simple. Like everything I talk about in this presentation is simple. Right? It's simple to do, it's just not necessarily the easiest thing in the world to do. Because we have resistance to those things. But create a list of the things, like when you wake up and you get out of bed, like are you on your phone before you're even out of your bed? You get dressed, maybe you check Facebook before you even get out of your bedroom to go grab breakfast. Whatever these are, list them out, rate them as effective or ineffective or neutral based off of your goals. Or go throughout the day and kind of call them out and write these things down. Don't make any changes just yet, but acknowledge them. That awareness can then lead us to better create our own cues for the new habits that we want to create such that they are obvious. And we can utilize what James Clear has in a book called an implementation intention, which is just a concrete statement eliminating ambiguity around what you will do. So if you want to read more, you could have an implementation intention, something along the lines of, I will read for 15 minutes at 10 p.m. in my bedroom. That's more likely to lead to success than to say, I'm going to read today. All right, good luck with that. You can also leverage your existing habits and start stacking them on top of each other, such that something that is already in place is then followed by something else that you want to do. Perhaps you already have an established gym routine, but you're not necessarily stretching well or taking care of your joints or doing any of those kind of movements that can keep you moving healthily. You can say, after I finish my workout at the gym, I will spend 10 minutes stretching in the corner wherever they've got the mats at or something like that. Make these cues obvious. Stage 2, in regards to the craving, we've recognized the cue. We desire the reward that we have. It creates this motivation for us. We need a big enough motivation that'll get us to act, so we have to make that attractive. Ways that we can make our habits that we want to pick up attractive, make this craving enough to take response, would be to leverage something that he refers to as temptation bundling. This is when you pair something that you want to do with something that you actually need to do. And it increases the chances that you're going to do it because you're doing it along with something that you enjoy a bit more. And so let's say you want to keep up with the latest news on React APIs or somebody's blog or something like that, but you also feel like you should probably do some work or read some email or something. You could say, okay, after I spend 15 minutes processing unread emails, I will read this blog post or whatever website you go to for some of that kind of news. Link those things you want to do with something that you need to do. You can also make these cravings more attractive by leveraging your cultural and social, your cultural networks or culture influences, social norms. The people that you engage with, those who you are close with, the groups that you are involved with, those that you would kind of admire with some kind of prestige or power, these are very influential forces in guiding our behavior. The more that you connect with them, the more likely you are to find the behaviors that you want to implement that they also identify with attractive. In fact, going against the grain in those situations requires more work than to go with the flow. So find those people who have those same beliefs that you want and join with them so that you are in line with them. All right, so we've had enough of a motivation here to get us to the response. We want the response to be something that we will actually do, that we are physically capable of doing. We want to make these responses as easy as possible. One of the ways that we can do that is to leverage the environment that you're in and design it to minimize friction that might keep you from doing these things. So choose a location that fits well with your daily routine, with the habit that you're trying to pick up. If you want to pick up a gym routine and you want to do it after work, we have a gym at work, which is totally sweet, so you should use that. But let's say you wanted to go to someplace else, maybe you shouldn't pick a gym that's 15 minutes the wrong direction from your home, right? Put these things you want to do on your path, on your routine. You can also prepare your locations and resources in advance so they're ready for you to pick these things up. I wanted to play more guitar at home a while back. It was getting kind of pushed to the side. I pulled it out of the room that I had it in, which is a separate office that I spent little time in. I moved it right next to my couch in my living room. It's right there. You grab it. It's tuned. It's stringed. Easy. Leverage my environment to do that. Some other things we can do. We can make our habits so ridiculously small that, of course, we're going to succeed. This starts to rack up little victories for us that we are who we intend to be and that we can do these things. You want to read? You want to become a reader and identify as one, as Brad talked about? Make your habits ridiculously small. Read for 2 minutes. Do 5 minutes of push-ups in between shows you're watching, something like that. You can also leverage technology and one-time decisions to automate your habits. One thing that I really enjoy is app timers in your phones. Limit social media with app timers. I'm running out of time, so I'll move fast. The rewards, we need to make them satisfying. How can we do that? We need to use immediate rewards as opposed to delayed rewards. Your brains like that. Choose things that are in line with your goals. However, don't give yourself some chocolate cake just because you went and ran today. That's going to take you offline. If doing nothing is your habit, like saving money, find ways to make that rewarding by tracking what you're doing. You can also leverage a habit tracker, a calendar, or a notebook. Keep these things to provide some visual cues to help you take action, to motivate you to keep going, and to provide proof that you are making progress. To break these habits, we invert these laws. Make the cues invisible. Hide the things that you don't want to see. Make the craving unattractive. Think about all the bad benefits of it. Make the response difficult. Put these things that you don't want several steps away from you. And when it comes to the reward, make it unsatisfying. Get somebody to hold you accountable. Make these bad habits you do available in a public manner so that people know. That's pretty much my time. The last thing that I had right here is I just wanted to call you to action on this. You're going to see a lot of things at the conference. Take action on these things. If you have habits, and I'm sure you do, that you do not like, utilize some of this stuff and make the change. Make a small change. And then when it works, keep going with it. And I would highly recommend that you also check out that book. So that's my time. Thank you.